Hello, everyone. Welcome to Localogy Insider, where we spotlight best practices and strategies in local commerce technology and SMB SaaS. So I'm Mike Boland, Senior Analyst at Localogy, and my guest today is Jason Tabeling, who's CEO of AirTank, which is a digital agency focused on commerce, among other things. So Jason, welcome to the program.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. So we've got a lot to get into, but first, for the sake of context, tell us a little bit more about you and AirTank for our audience members that are not familiar.
Yeah. So I've been with AirTank just a couple months as their CEO. This company's been around for about 10 years now, and they spent the last 3 years really focused on commerce and product development. And for me, I spent the last 10 years in digital marketing agencies, holding companies. And the last five, I was at Brand Muscle, which is where I got exposed to Localogy, and we did a lot of work in through channel marketing automation. So it's good to be back and sort of still in the ecosystem.
Absolutely. So let's start at a high level, drilling down a little bit more into AirTank. Where the business is kind of, operationally speaking, any figures you can give us to kind of give us a sense of operational scale.
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, we've been around for a while now, but the last 3 years has really started to accelerate growth. We'll finish the year about 3.5 million bucks top line, profitable, 25 people between full-time and part-time team members. And 2021 is really the time where we're looking to extend that growth and accelerate things. But that's about the scale that we're working with today.
Yeah, that's great. Now let's talk a little bit more about kind of product itself. Let's give a little more color to like what you're offering, how it's packaged, and all of that kind of thing. So, what would you consider the biggest kind of differentiators in the product set? And another kind of thing I think I want to drill down into is, you've taken the headless route. Which is
Yeah.
kind of a term we're hearing a lot these days. There's a bit of a trend towards that kind of approach towards software in terms of its flexibility, especially for small businesses, which is an area we focus a lot on. So for our
Yeah.
audience members that aren't familiar, tell us a bit about the kind of headless approach and then back to the kind of original, broader question of what your differentiators are.
Yeah. So this is really interesting because that's sort of where we came from. So just to give a little context, Mike said it perfectly for those listening, right? The headless approach is just taking off the front end, the CMS, the forward-facing aspect that the consumer would see, separating that from the back end where you might do your order management, payments, fulfillment, that sort of stuff. So that's the idea behind Headless. For AirTank and where we started to build the product that we call Zifter Shop today, I give the team credit. They were working on commerce products and as sort of an agency building solutions. And they were working with a lot of big players today. And they felt their clients and the team felt very constrained by the monolithic approach, right? You're in sort of these commerce platforms and you got to work within the constraints of their platform. So they said, man, there's just a better way to do this. We can make everything API first. We can make it purely headless optional, and give a lot more flexibility back to our customers and brands that are on the product. And so that sort of was the genesis of Zifter Shop and really sort of the differentiators to me of the business today. We saw the future then to build this product. We see where things are going in the future in terms of this modular approach. I mean, all of your listeners today probably have unique custom aspects to their business. And a lot of these commerce platforms are great to get them in the cloud. But the next phase of that is what are the custom pieces that need to come together to truly unlock and scale your business? And that's where the API first sort of modular approach is, I think, the future of SaaS in general, but specifically what we saw come in and where we built Zifter Shop, the key commerce product we're offering now.
Yeah, and it strikes that approach strikes the right balance of kind of simplicity and ease of use, but also customization. Like it's hard to usually get those two things are usually at different ends of a sliding scale, but
Yeah.
the customization coming from just more combinations of kind of things that you can put together with different APIs in order to just customize something that's very specific. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's totally fair to say. I mean, you think about all the proliferation of SaaS products today and these little microservices that do really like one or two really things good really well. Payments could be one, order processing, fulfillment, whatever those things are. And brands want to find their own best in breed partners that suit their needs as best as possible. And that's why this modular approach is the right thing, that API first. All the elements got to be able to be exposed to let these brands customize and build the experiences that they need for their customers.
And it seems like this is a step in the direction that we've kind of been moving for a while. When you see large platforms, a good example is probably Salesforce. They build up as a true platform in terms of having lots of little kind of apps and plugins and things that third-party developers can build on that ecosystem. And that sort of achieves that level of customization because there's all these kind of add-ons. WordPress, the WordPress world is another good example of that. But it seems like it takes that concept just one step further. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think the key difference between that, and that's where a lot of the marketplace, Shopify and Salesforce have just this app ecosystem that's huge, and that's really great. The limitations I think there where we're trying to push and educate the market and our customers around is even those areas, they're still exposed to certain elements of the API interface. So let's say there's 10 options, 3 of those 10 can be used in the API and you can build an app around those 3 things. Well, what about the other 7? I want to customize in there.
Yeah.
And so that's the approach, right? You unlock all 10 of those. You may never need them. You may need 1, you may need all 10, but having those available to you really enables the scale that we think businesses will need to get to, really need to get to now, but will realize more and more as they continue to evolve in the space.
Yeah, that's great. Now, with that kind of technical backdrop, let's go one level deeper on Zifter Shop itself. So this is really just the focus on e-commerce, which is one component of what you've always done, but like a kind of primary component. Now, this, if we talk about the timing, e-commerce is clearly having a moment with a lot of small businesses and large businesses as a survival imperative, accelerate their digital transformation. And a lot of that involves selling online if, we're talking about businesses that previously sold in physical stores. Just to give you a few quick data points to kind of tee this up, eMarketer reports that we've seen 35% year-over-year growth in e-commerce spending in the U.S. E-commerce also has, for the last 10 years or so, as long as I've been covering it, kind of hovered around 10% of U.S. retail spending. Over the last 7 months alone, it's shot up to 15%. And the thought is that it's probably going to stay up in that higher level. So let's talk about timing. The launch of Zifter Shop, the functionality has actually been around for a while, but you've kind of formalized it as a product recently.
Yeah. So a couple things. The trend lines are clear, right? And I think there's other reports that we've accelerated the e-commerce space by 5 years in the last 6 months by just forcing us into it, which I think is really good for businesses and brands, even if we can get past this as quickly as possible. So for us, we've been messing around with this product and getting customers on it from a beta standpoint over the last 3 to 5 years. We're now at a point where we've got $100 million of transactions flowing through the platform. So we've validated the use case, I think. We've really started to validate it. And as we think about where we are today and where we think things are going, there's a couple things I think a lot of SMBs are still missing when they think about just setting up an e-commerce platform. And I'll give you 2 quick examples.
Sure.
That come part and parcel or out of the box with Zifter Shop. One is subscriptions. The subscription mentality of kind of ongoing recurring revenue from a customer and the engagement level that takes, I think is something that even Shopify themselves just rolled out a couple weeks ago. And so that's been something we're in on, I think is really important. 2, for SMBs, when you think about the physical presence, there's certainly a location element that's really important, right? The 5, 10, 20 miles around that physical location. But once you get into the internet, there are no limitations. So suddenly you have a product that only someone could use a tank of gas to get to, available within the entire United States, and I would argue really within the world. So we've also, in Zifter Shop, built the platform to be multi-currency, multilingual out of the box, because we think the globalization for even the smallest of businesses could open it up, and you don't have to worry about the cost of multi-currency, the cost of multilingual anymore. Those things are gone. Those barriers to do that are gone. And I think people still feel like they're just getting onto the web to support people around them. And that might be true, and that's a great step. But I think there's a way to expand that beyond that people haven't really fully understood yet or thought about when they think about their digital strategy.
So that's great. Now, to kind of drill down a little bit more on examples, we like to, as I like to say, show rather than tell on this show. Any kind of mini case studies or examples of kind of some of the value that you brought to a given company that were just kind of, tangible or concrete ROI points?
Yeah, I got a couple in the chamber here, but one that I think we just did a press release yesterday on our relationship with SoClean, and I think this is a really great example for this. They went from a very well tried and true commerce platform, big monolithic stack, into the Zifter Shop platform and sort of decoupled things and leveraged the API nature of it. And sort of one key thing happened that trickled down to a whole bunch of other things. But just to boil it down, when they moved from old platform to new platform, they saw a 40% increase in server response time, page load time, which you think about search engine rankings and how speed is important from a Google
Very much.
optimization standpoint. It's huge, right? And so the real the real nuts and bolts of that is a 7.5% increase in conversion rate. So you suddenly you get the page performing better, you get the speed there, you get the commerce checkout experience better and more connected to the payment vendors they want, the order management vendors they want, and that experience just lifted all boats to that big improvement. So that's one. I think when you can see the conversions come through and have a metric like page speed or server response time improve, but translation through to conversions, I think you really are on to something and validate it. I'll just give the other real one quick, which
Go for it.
hopefully this is all right. But
Yep.
the other example I think in validating this sort of headless approach is we work with a healthcare provider, and privacy and security continues to be more and more important. Specifically for these guys, they had some HIPAA requirements. So there's a lot of back end data privacy security elements that need to be transacted with, and those need to be separated and decoupled from the front end consumer experience and how those things talk to each other. So
Yeah.
I think whether it's GDPR or data security, privacy, all in SOC compliance, HIPAA stuff, your ability to separate those two and kind of containerize these elements becomes really important and much easier with a platform like Zifter.
Yeah. And one thing that jumps out there besides the, concrete KPIs is the kind of range or the applicability or, broad applicability of different kind of types of businesses or verticals that you can serve. You mentioned healthcare. Is there a particular vertical focus, or do you consider yourself more of a kind of horizontal player?
Yeah, I think, we're certainly well positioned to be a horizontal player for this API first modular commerce space. But we really started to carve out some great niches in retail and personal healthcare stuff. So there's more and more sort of consumer healthcare devices that are direct to consumer. There's, allergy treatments or migraine treatments, CPAP stuff, all sorts of things like that you used to have to go to your CVS or whatever for, that people are transacting a little more privately through the web. And so we've carved out a really good niche so far there. That's been a good accelerant to our growth. We're grateful to be playing in that space.
So, I mean, speaking of verticals, are there any you see out there that you can talk about that either have unmet needs or have specific dynamics that map to what you're providing? Like what you just mentioned about healthcare, you're primed to kind of tackle that market. Are there any others like that?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, there are certainly a lot of players out there that I think have an opportunity. There's still retail is a massive one. A couple others that I think have sort of a vertical niche, I would say, that we have the capability and have talked to some consumers about that are really important would be automotive, right? To be able to transact for some of these local car dealerships is something interesting. The other one might be grocery, right? You've got all these guys that are, leveraging Instacart today from a grocery standpoint. And that gives up the ownership of that consumer information to Instacart that maybe those local dealers, those local grocers want to pull back themselves. So I think we're really just at the nascent stages. Telehealth could be another example that's just explosive. I mean, imagine going to your local doctor doing a telehealth, and then as you're in that experience, the prescriptions or the medical devices are right there for you to check out as you're a part of that. Like the doctor says, hey, you need, this allergy treatment, and it's right there for you to click and buy. Like we're not there yet, but I think the growth of that would indicate that there's a lot of ways privacy, commerce, transaction, all that stuff to sort of come together that I think will be interesting for us to watch.
Yeah, and that kind of telehealth to e-commerce handoff is certainly logical as a use case. So another kind of related question is, moving from expansion possibility in a vertical sense to expansion possibilities in more of a kind of functional sense. And you actually just mentioned a few of these or alluded to some of these. And earlier we were talking about subscriptions. So where are there kind of
Yeah.
adjacent functions that you'd like to move into where there are synergies that kind of complement or tee off of what you're already offering that could kind of be next on the roadmap?
Well, I mean, from a roadmap standpoint for us, I think one of the key things we see happening is transition from IT and development into the business. So for us, there's a lot more functionality that we're worried about, or working on to make sure that business folks can make quick and rapid changes, promotions, product inventory, design layout changes, things that might typically take an upgrade, an integration, um, the development resources to just get around to making those changes much more rapid and in the hands of the business. So those admin features, I think, are a place where we're seeing business decisions, the marketing team really drive a lot of this stuff and let their IT and development teams get back to bigger picture experiential things that might be important for them.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, kind of winding down here, I have kind of two like forward-looking questions for you. The
Okay.
first circles back to the kind of the COVID dynamics I spoke about earlier, and I alluded to this in the figures in terms of the inflection in e-commerce.
Yeah.
Do you see that as a permanent, semi-permanent kind of change in terms of how you're projecting those figures and how that's informing your roadmap?
There's incredible, I don't think we'll go back, but I do think it's vertical specific. You know,
Hmm.
people are super interested to get back together in more social environments, whether it be restaurants or that sort of stuff. But the ability to have your groceries delivered to your house, or to have any sort of commerce transaction shipped directly to you, I think the less experiential things, more transactional items are here to stay. And you'll continue to see that grow as people get more comfortable, as more businesses
Yeah.
come online and have what they need available. I mean, the words, so many words we're saying that we didn't even know are here to stay, right? Curbside, for
Yeah.
example, that's here to stay. And I really hope that out of this, it will be positive for the consumer from an experience standpoint as we hopefully get back to normal as quickly as possible. That new normal will be a better digital experience overall, and that the tools we're creating now will enable that for brands and consumers alike, and just give us a good rounded out experience that we've really wanted the whole time. We've just been maybe slower than we thought to get there.
Yeah, order ahead coffee is another one. I've been running about that for years. You know, why hasn't order ahead coffee exploded? I mean, who wants to wait in line versus, push a button? And I think it's a matter
Yeah.
of consumer conditioning. Like one of the thesis behind, the accelerated transformation on the provider side is they've been kind of forced into this new perspective. And then once there, they're thinking, oh, wow, this is great. I should have been doing this all along. I think that same kind of psychological process happens on the consumer side where they're doing things like curbside pickup. And, they may never go back because they find that's just a better method.
Yeah.
So the second question to close out here with respect to just kind of forward looking stuff is, I want to hear what you're kind of working on now that you're most excited about and what we can expect from AirTank as we kind of roll into 2021.
Yeah, I mean, like I said to start, I mean, 2021 should be our best year ever. The team has done an incredible job positioning the business for growth. The roadmap is strong, and I'll call out a couple things that I made it briefly mention I think will be really important for us, and important for the viewers here. I think, one is these integrations. I talked about how much you're seeing these different microservices and platforms pop up that you might want to use, whether it be CRMs or order management systems. Our platform are really focused on making that easier and easier and more turnkey, giving the power into the business to make quick changes and bring your own best of breed partners. So that time to market, I think for us, and the ability for the business admins to make changes that previously were locked off away from them forward and into their hands, we think is really important for our business, and a key place where we're looking to invest and make sure that it's available for our customers as we grow into 2021.
Yeah, that's actually a great place to end it. And that's all the time we have. So I want to thank you, Jason, for spending time with us.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. You do a great job, man. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. These discussions are always fun, and I learned a lot here. So thank you for that. Thank you
Yeah,
all for
sure.
watching. Stay tuned for lots more from Localogy, including thought leadership and events and written narratives. So this has been Localogy Insider. I'm Mike Boland. Thanks for watching.